You're listening to Creating a Universe, a Love Anarchy podcast hosted by William J. Rogers. On this show, we follow the journey of creatives, artists, and entrepreneurs who are making a name for themselves in the ever-evolving landscape of today's industry. Featuring an insight into both Love Anarchy and the Lovaniverse music universe, as well as the individual projects and stories of each of our guests, from the music industry and beyond. So whether you're a budding creative or simply interested in what goes on behind the scenes, this is the podcast for you. Hello and welcome to Creating a Universe. I'm your host, William J. Rogers, and today I am here with Alex Centorame, frontman of the dark fantasy metal band Blood of Indigo. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, man. It's great to have you here. So
awesome. It's a pleasure to be here, man.
Obviously, we're speaking at a very exciting time, right off the back of the release of your debut album, Dawn of the Shaded World, which is awesome. But perhaps just as a good place to start, would you perhaps be able to give maybe a bit of a introduction and overview to who you are and what you're doing?
Sure. So my name is Alex Centorame, and I am the lead vocalist of Blood of Indigo, and we are a dark fantasy metal band from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So we started the band in 2017. Originally, it was just me and Mario, or you might know him as Marius. That's what the band description says, or the bio says, but we call him Mario. We started the band in 2017, and then Nathan joined shortly after, and that was when we really solidified our sound, and we decided, yeah, we're going to make a band that sounds like Dark Souls. And cool. Or Bloodborne. Well, I'm more so Bloodborne, if anything, because I played Bloodborne before I played Dark Souls, but it kind of all becomes like Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, Sekiro, all of these From Software games kind of have like a very similar feel to them. So we kind of took a lot of inspiration from those video games, and even from things like Lord of the Rings, which Mario is a big fan of, and so is Nathan. And the funny thing is, I didn't see the movie until like literally like this New Year's Eve. We made a point of watching Lord of the Rings on New Year's Eve so I can see it. It's funny. I just like, because it came out when I was a kid, my parents were just like, we're not sitting in a theater with you for 3 hours. So if you want to watch it, like just figure it out when you're 27. And that was what happened. Nice. We watched the movie and it was great. And it gave us like so many cool ideas for like, writing the next album, which has been really helpful. Yeah, like, and I hate saying the rest is history because it's like, but there's so much history we have to talk about.
Sure.
But yeah, that's pretty much how it started. It was really just like me and Mario started the band in 2017, like really shortly after Nathan joined, and then that was when we kind of became like what we started putting in motion what we would become today, which is like calling ourselves dark fantasy metal, which it's because I think like our music is so fluid in a lot of ways, and it's kind of like going to a buffet of like, okay, like it's gothic here, but then it's like in the harmonic minor scale on another song, so you're suddenly in the desert, but it's not vampires, although you're kind of putting a vampire in the desert if you watch the illustration video of those things. So I guess you're kind of crossing over into all these things. It feels like Super Mario almost, like when you're in a game and you have like these exactly like different levels and like different experiences for every song, but they still belong to the same world. It's not like we're taking something it's not like we're putting like astronauts and space aliens in dark fantasy, because that's not really, it doesn't really always work well. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm sure there are some people who get really experimental with their imagination. But
for sure,
to us, that was what made the most sense. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's a great way to kick things off. I love that. I love how so you've really kind of started by I mean, obviously you guys are a band and you make music, but really what you've just told me is your root has come from video games and from fantasy and such, and how that has had such a huge impact on what you guys are about, which is very cool. And I mean, it makes sense because you guys do have a bit of a multimedia sort of thing going with like so much artwork, and you've obviously got all this lore and everything, which would be really great to get into. But yeah, wow, where to go with it, man? Like I'm really interested in you guys' journey. I've been following you guys for a little while. You were doing these live stream conversations with people, and you did one with Louis Nass. That was where I first came across you guys, and I saw that you had the whole 3 free songs opt-in, Savvy Musician Academy style setup, which was super cool. And so what is clear to me is you guys have really taken your time with this. This has been a real journey that you have this has been a labor of love for a long time. So I'm kind of interested in a bit more of your process over the years of from you starting out to the process of now finally having this album together. What was the initial kind of spark of creating the band, other than the inspiration of the fantasy and stuff?
Well, I think there were a lot of things, and I think that part of it does come from finding your true purpose in life and being authentic about that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because I came from the world of radio, and the thing about and broadcasting generally, I went to school for journalism in 2014 and went until 2016. And right out of college, I got a job at a mainstream radio station doing news. Okay. And at that time, I felt like, I was doing something that was really fun because I'd always been a presenter. I always wanted to talk and tell stories. And I always loved storytelling. That was just kind of something that came from my childhood. I always liked writing stories about these video game inspired monsters. I wrote a story which is about a monster that comes and terrorizes a town, and it was inspired by Nightmare from Soul Calibur, and I drew him on the title page for one of my teachers in school, and they were just please tell your son to read the Bible. Not literally, but it was just, that was kind of how it felt, the way they were just this is really dark for somebody in grades for somebody in grade 3. But it's all entertainment. It's all just sure. Video games and movies and fun stuff and things that you do when you're a kid. You use your imagination and you just come up with really cool, fantastical things that are otherworldly and fictional. But when I was working in radio, I was not only doing the news stuff, I was also hosting a metal show. So I was doing 2 things at the same time. I was hosting a radio show at a radio station at York University here in Toronto. And I was doing that show for a total of 7 years. And in that time, I felt like I was bringing that frontman energy into my show. I wanted my show to be the most lively radio show you've ever heard, to the point where you can feel my emotions coming through the microphone. And when I'm telling you that metal is the best genre in the world, that people are going to listen, and people who've never heard of metal before are going to listen for the first time and say, wow, you know what? There's actually some really good musicianship here, some really cool art that we can peel back and start to immerse ourselves in, and not just be convinced that every band sounds like Metallica or every band sounds like Noise. Because I think that there's sometimes among the mainstream world, and especially at that time, there wasn't really a lot of people listening to metal and saying wow, this is actually something we can sink our teeth into. I think, nowadays you have more bands with really amazing production and a lot of really great tools where you're bringing these elements to, I wouldn't even say mainstream, but almost the forefront, where production has gotten really good. And now it's actually, I feel like metal is becoming more and more accessible to people who aren't familiar with it. And I think that's a really cool thing, because that brings in more people. But not to say that there hasn't been generations of bands that have done an amazing job of introducing people to metal. And I mean, Metallica is one of those bands that can do that really well.
For sure.
But it really started from radio, and I was doing those 2 things at the same time, working in mainstream radio doing news, which eventually I kind of started to realize it wasn't really my authentic personality. I was kind of just doing I was taking a small part of my personality, which was I love performing, and kind of just saying, well, it's a job in the business, so I'm going to be, I'm going to work with it and do my best. And I did, until one day they decided that they didn't have the space for me to work there anymore. And they said, well, you know what, like, you know, you're young, you still have a bright future ahead of you. We just, you know, you should, you know, maybe get more experience, maybe work a little more in the field. Just right now is not the time for us to have you on our team. So it was really heartbreaking when that happened. And I was still doing my metal show. And in that time, like, that was when because like, well, before all of this happened, like in that time period, I had become friends with Lindsay Schoolcraft, who is from my hometown of, well, Toronto. Well, she lives in Oshawa, but we all kind of live in the greater Toronto area. So we all kind of go to the same shows. We see each other often. And I met Lindsay at a bar called the Hard Luck Bar in like 2015 or something. And what I remember most about her is that, like, I was telling her about my radio show that I wanted to maybe bring her on as a guest and like talk a little bit about her history with the band Cradle of Filth, who she was with at the time, and get some insight on what it's like to be a musician at the highest level, traveling the world, playing major festivals, because, you know, that was kind of one of those things that was in the back of my mind that was brewing. Like, while I was doing my radio show, it was kind of like, I wanted to be the front man. I wanted to go out there and feel the synchronicity of you in the audience and being able to make people feel real emotions and feel that through an artist. And I always felt like I was a creative person, but radio doesn't always give you that creative outlet. I just felt like at the time that was a place where, you know, it was going to be fulfilling to my creative side to some degree, because I didn't understand yet that, and I was still in my early 20s, that you can actually put all of your eggs into a basket of creativity and make something that is much bigger than yourself. And it doesn't have to be in something that is halfway there. It could be something that's the full way there. And I also want to say too, that I did love my time in radio, and I still appreciate the skills that I learned from it. And I still like want to use those skills for everything, including interviews and voice acting, which is something I got to do a lot of. And I'm very grateful for my experience and time with the places that I've worked. But there was always kind of that feeling of, I really want to be on stage right now. I really want to create an album. I really want to inject myself into music. And that was when I brought Lindsay onto my show, and we had like the best conversation ever. And it was probably one of the most inspiring moments of my life, where she told me that she played Wacken open air, got off stage, and just, it was like the most like amazing feeling ever. And I had been thinking about that, like subconsciously, even like to a point where I was like, I want to do that, but is that possible? And then when I heard her say it from her perspective, that was like, for the first time, it really clicked. And I was like, this can happen. This can actually happen. Somebody I'm sitting in the room with right now has like been in front of that sea of people that I had always wanted to be in front of. And growing up like a fan of wrestling as a kid, I would watch WrestleMania and picture myself holding the world title, being like, that's like where I have to be one day, in front of an audience, telling a story and making people feel something. And I think that like I kind of put all the pieces together, and I was like, well, people are telling me I have a really good voice, like a really good speaking voice. I really like entertaining people. I have this dream of performing in front of the world. I was like, well, you know what? And I love music, and my favorite part of wrestling was always the music, was always the feel of like the entrance and the ominous entrance of the Undertaker, and then you put on a really cool match, which was kind of like the art itself, which was kind of like putting on like, even like just like crafting some kind of art piece or a song or whatever it may be. And, you know, my passion for music grew and grew and grew as I was working in radio, talking to all these artists and being inspired by them. Like, I spoke to so many bands throughout like my time in the radio business. I spoke to Alexi Leho from Children of Bodom, Spencer from Periphery, Lisa White Gloves from Arch Enemy, Lindsay Schoolcraft, as you guys know. And really, I think Lindsay was the one who like really made me believe this dream can be real for the first time, because I sat in the room with her, somebody from like my hometown. Well, I'm not from Oshawa, but I am from Toronto. And like, I feel like everyone in the greater Toronto area is kind of like from the same place. I feel like we all come from the same heart of the Toronto metal scene. And when I heard it come from her, like I said, like it just really set a fire under me and said, I need to do this now. And literally like the next day, or not the next day, I think it was like the next week, what really set it in stone was I went to a Slipknot show in 2016. This was probably, I believe it was shortly after I spoke to Lindsay, either before or around that time period. I went to that show and I saw the energy from that show, especially Corey Taylor on stage, because man, like he is an incredible frontman.
Big time.
But I remember leaving that show saying, I'm going to sign up for vocal lessons right now. Like, I don't care what time it is, what day it is. And I like, you know, it ended up being the next day because it was obviously nobody's open at ungodly hours of 11 p.m. I ended up going to, I ended up signing up for vocal lessons. I took clean vocal lessons just to learn how to sing, just like contemporary vocal lessons. Cause I had come from piano lessons when I was a kid. I got up to level 2. So I had a very basic understanding of like theory and kind of like how song structure works. And I've also been a music fan. I've also been a fan of new bands that were up and coming, like big major bands that have done it and that were there to, you know, which really came into my life to really show me who and what I really needed to do. And that was when everything kind of just started falling into place, because I started out doing the lessons, and then I started listening. Well, I was already listening to harsh vocals and growling, but like, you know, when you're starting out as a growler, you always kind of have like you hear every single YouTube video ever telling you, okay, here's the thing about growling and screaming, don't hurt yourself. And then all of a sudden you're just like, whoa, like I can't like rip my vocal cords in half. And then like you hear all these things that are dangerous, and then you go on like WebMD and you're looking up like worst things that can happen to your throat from screaming. You can rip it in half and with a chainsaw if you scream too loud. You know, like all of these things, right? So then you know, after a while I just started kind of like in doing vocal lessons. I remember my vocal teacher at the time was also like, you know, be careful with that stuff, like, you know, don't hurt yourself. But then, you know, the more I started just trusting my instincts, listening to my body and trying things that worked for me, I kind of, you know, just went with the Melissa Cross Zen of Screaming DVD instructions and just kind of followed a lot of her practices, listened to Wages of Sin by Arch Enemy with Angela Gosso's vocals. And Angela is my favorite vocalist of all time, because I think that she's
brutal,
just she's awesome. And she has the best fundamentals when it comes to vocals. And to me, like what the most important thing is when you have a real emotion backing because you can have all the techniques in the world. It's all about meaning what you say and saying what you mean. And that's kind of how that translates into the Blood of Indigo, Dawn of the Shaded World album, because that was really just where it all came from. And yeah, like I think that from there, and just practicing and owning my craft and just getting better and posting covers of myself singing the SpongeBob SquarePants theme song and so on. I just did a bunch of memes. Like I literally just like put myself out there. I was like, you know what, like, you know, if you can't like this is funny. Like it's very like at the end of the day, it's like it's acting is playing, right? And anything to do with the voice is playing with your voice. And I used to do that a lot as a kid too. I do like all the South Park characters and like just like do impressions of my friends and family, and we all just have a good laugh. And you know, that's the thing, like especially when you're doing something like growling and screaming, like it's a very niche type of style. But I think that when you practice with it and you kind of put yourself out there and sing songs that sound funny and make yourself look a little ridiculous, and just kind of like, you know, leave your shame at the door, leave your ego at the door, just have fun. You know, that was what I did. And at first people were just like, what are you doing, man? Like, why are you posting videos of you singing the Zaboomafoo theme song? Like, or Dragon Ball Z? Like, you know, this is hilarious, but like, I don't really get what you're doing. And I was
and were you growling these or?
Yeah, I was growling the songs. They're on my Instagram somewhere. You can probably find them.
I think I did see a clip like this. It's, as you said, pretty good fun.
Oh yeah, my hair was shorter, so like you might not recognize me, or well, I don't know.
Mhm.
But I don't think I aged that badly. But but it was only a few years ago too. It only takes like 2 years to grow out your hair.
Sure.
But yeah, like, you know, just put yourself out there, just have fun. And that was what I did. And that was when, you know, eventually I met Mario through his former vocalist of his other band, like, who I met at an arcade wearing an Arch Enemy shirt.
Right.
Kind of funny how that
Cool.
works. I was like, I went up to him, approached him, and said hello. And we set up an interview on my radio show. We spoke, and that was when, like, me and Mario's former vocalist were just kind of growling back and forth. And like, Mario has this thing where whenever he sees me growl, he laughs, because like, he just like is like, whenever he hears something he likes, he like it's actually like, it's funny because it's something that's like so cool. And that's something that me and him have in common, because like, whenever we listen to like music that like for example, he makes a really good riff, sometimes I'll just be laughing hysterically and it'll be a good
just
thing.
like excitement. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, like we just like, that's just kind of how we are. Like, some people think they're just like, are you laughing at my playing? We're like, no, we're laughing because it's so good. Like that's cool, that gets like that was a thing, right? So anyway, that was like, I met Mario through an interview, and we became really good friends because we had so much in common. We liked video games, pizza, and evil sounding music. And that was when I started going over to his house, and like, you just like be like, all right, well, I wrote this song, what do you think? And it was Resurrection.
Wow.
And it was like, so this is like the beginning. I don't know where this song's gonna go, but like, it's something. And I was like, this is really good, I can do a lot with this. And
Nice.
Then Mario met Nathan like on Facebook, because he saw him shredding on keys, like doing his thing with I think Lucas MacArthur from Solaris. And yeah, that was when Mario was just like, so do you want to, like, and he just kind of messaged him, got in contact with Nathan, and I think we ended up just getting together. We did like our very first photo shoot, which was like not as awesome as the photo shoot that we did with Andrea Hunter, but it was something. It was a great start, and it was a day where me, Nathan, and Mario really hung out for the first time together. And prior to that, Nathan had sent us like his own orchestrations to Resurrection, which was mind blowing, like the ones that you hear now. And it just took like the idea that was initially there, like the fun, like I guess like the foundation, and just made it 100 times better. And that was when. That was when we really started seeing we have something special here. So Resurrection was the very first song that we wrote.
Wow, that's very fitting then, considering how it kind of kicks in the album in that way, after the intro suite, of course. But
yeah,
you know, yeah, that's man, that's awesome. I love all of that. Like, it's a great story that you guys have. I really love your story as well. It's much less usual in that, like, you didn't have like such a like background as a musician all the way through, but like you clearly had this sort of just frontmanship. That's super cool, man. And I know I've heard you speak about like the wrestling and stuff before, and these kind of influences. It's really cool that it does come across in what you do, and the way that you've put it all together into this format is awesome, man. It's an inspiring story. So yeah, thank you for sharing.
Oh, well, thank you for setting me up to talk for however long that was. But but I'm really happy to share that story, because like, I didn't come from like, I didn't go to school for music, and I'm in school now for creative writing. I'm in my 4th year university.
Wow, cool.
And I think like what we all contribute to the band individually is something different. Like Mario and Nathan are more on the side of like composing song structure and understanding like the instrumental aspect. And then I'm kind of just like the wacky imagination guy who's like, why don't we put like this sound effect here that sounds like a wind-up toy or something to bring that theme back from like this thing. And like, I'm really into like little small like intricacies that kind of like make the imagination come to life. And the thing with like, and Nathan is also really good at that too, where he can find, because he's like a really into bringing out small details. Even like if you dissect like one of the Blood of Indigo tracks and you hear like just the sound of like, you might hear a sound that you won't even hear in the final mix, just so then it makes every other sound better. And that's why I think like, he's just incredible with that stuff. And
so Nathan's really like he's producing the records, right? Pretty much. Is he mixing them?
Yeah.
Then?
Yeah, like I think
Yeah.
Mario and Nathan are like, they're the mixing and mastering guys. Like those guys are full on like on the computer doing all that stuff. And I think like it depends on what you call the role of producer. I think we all kind of take a different role in producing. Like I'm an ideas guy. I'm not a computer guy as much. Like or like a interface like technical guy, I guess that's better. Like for lack of a better
engineer.
term. Not so much an engineer. I'm more just like an ideas guy. Both those guys are really good ideas guys as well, and I think we all work really well that way. I think we all contribute in some sort of way. I think that like Mario is so good at coming up with just like the fundamentals and making them massive, like bringing out those really fundamental things and making them solid as a rock. Nice. And like excellent guitar riffs, excellent song structure, really good feel for consistency and what the sound is supposed to be. And then Nathan is so good at making things sparkle and shine and come out at the right times. And his timing is incredible. And his knowledge for music theory is just outstanding. And his feel for his playing is just so like incredible. And I think my approach is more from the vocalist approach, where I'm really into lyrics. I'm really into names of things. I'm really into what everything means. And I think that sometimes even not knowing when things don't need to mean too much. Sure, because sometimes you want to leave space for the reader or the listener or the watcher to really decide what things are going to mean to them, because that's the fun in art. It's no fun when somebody's telling you how to appreciate something.
For sure. Yeah. I'm with you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. Yeah. I know I've seen some of the stuff that Nathan's putting up. He's been quite active recently with production stuff and composing stuff. He does have that real kind of composer stature about him, and his orchestrations and such are really incredible, really epic. And I assume you've got the intro track, right? Is it, do I pronounce it Memesis? How do you pronounce that one?
Memesis,
right. And that completely I was not expecting that when I heard the album, man. And it's like super epic, like orchestral suite, right? And it's normal in metal, that especially in more like symphonic metal, that you have like an intro track, you know, that gets the vibe going. But like this is like a 14-minute like dark fantasy epic orchestral suite. I could not believe it. That I said to you guys, like that is so bold, man. I don't think I've ever seen that before. So super cool, very, very cinematic, which kind of goes into what you guys are doing. And I was assuming that's I guess largely like Nathan's part, as I suppose, is the kind of orchestrator and kind of composer in that sense.
Yeah, I think that it was actually like it was a lot of like there was a lot of thought put into that. And I think that I have to say Nathan is an incredible producer and an incredible composer. Like he just knows his stuff so well, and the way that he arranged that made so much sense, and it was perfect. And it was one of those things, like, and the funny thing is, like, we made that track very last. That was the last track that we did. And it was also done during COVID. It was done all remotely. It was like, I remember sitting down with Nathan, like, remotely and over Zoom, and just like being like, hey, so like we have to make an intro track. And our initial thought was like, we're really tired of 1 minute and 30 seconds of nothing. 1 minute and 30, and that's not like, not to say there's anything wrong with like doing a 1 minute and 30 second intro, but like, it just comes from like, sometimes in order to know what you want, you have to know what you don't want. And to us, it was like, if we're going to make a big splash in the dark fantasy metal swimming pool, I think I've said that term before. You know, you got to go in with a bang, right? Like, we're putting our hearts into this, right? And we wanted to make something that was authentic, not necessarily something that was going to be like everybody like has to think that this is the most commercial and accessible thing of all time. For us, it's like, man, look, it attracts and repels, right? Some people look at 14 minutes intro track and they're just like, fuck, I can't sit down with this for 14 minutes. I don't have the patience for this. And that's fine. And we're like, great, you can skip to Resurrection if you want to, but you're missing out on like where all of the cool gems are going to be.
Totally,
and you know, we really like is like Nathan is like so excellent at like just like using his talents and putting them like and working with the band as well, and like taking ideas and making them come to life, because and that's why we work so well together, because like I kind of just come to him and say like, hey, like why don't we make like a song which is like we take a motif of every single song on this record, because it's a concept album, and just like put it into this, because like if you go track by track, it's a very different type of concept album, which isn't like here's chapter 1 and then here's chapter 10. It's very like here's a bunch of different things that are all connected to the same universe with a different feel. But in order to kind of wrap this up with a bow, Memesis kind of does that for you. It kind of takes everything and puts it into a nice place, like a science textbook glossary, where you can go back, and if you want to know where any of the like, if you want to hear repeating themes, go back to that song and reference it and dissect it, and then you can find all those pieces in all the other tracks. And the little tiny things, they even come up for like 2 seconds, like you can probably hear them. And that was a combination of like me and Nathan kind of sitting together and talking about like how we can go further into detail and bring this song further to life, rather than it just being an overture of just like 1 minute and 30 seconds of lead guitars that kind of just take you into the first track. And not to say there's nothing wrong with doing that, but I think we kind of just got tired of listening to records that had that, and we wanted to make the first song like, doesn't matter how long it's going to be. If it was 30 minutes, we didn't care. We were like, we're just going to like full on go on with this song, put in a motif of everything, and each section is going to go for as long as it needs to, so it can transition into the next part, so it makes sense. And some parts are longer than others, which are like the Corpse Bride section of Memesis. It's kind of funny to say that. It's longer than, let's say, the Novice Pyromancy section, because the message takes longer to sink in for Corpse Bride sometimes. And sometimes Novice Pyromancy is like one of those songs which is like there's a lot happening in a short period of time. Corpse Bride there is a feel that is trying to immerse you for however long, like 7 minutes or however long that song is. But every feel on that track is different. Every segue is different in Memesis, and I have to give so much credit to Nathan for just being an incredible musician, an incredible composer, and just an incredible mind to work with, because like him and I work like peanut butter and jelly when it comes to this stuff, because I'm very much like, I have these wacky ideas that like anybody else might look at me like I'm crazy for, but Nathan has the ability to sit down with me and really like understand what I'm talking about when I say, okay,
it into music.
I just feel like I'm like the crazy art director sometimes, like in the studio play, who's like, okay, now we're gonna have this scene. And then like Nathan will actually be like, I understand everything you're saying, and I'm gonna turn that into music.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. It does seem like you guys have such a great balance and camaraderie between you. That's really, really cool, man.
Yeah, like we all contribute different strengths, and and the things like the things where we come up short with, somebody else can do better. We say, here, just run with it. And it's like, it's all a matter of like, we always think of it as like, oh, we're buddies first, like we're friends first. So we're always trying to do what's best for the band, because the band itself is like another relationship that we have. It's like you have the relationship with us as friends, and we have the band here, and we're all giving ourselves to this thing so we can make it bigger than us. And that's what the process has been a lot of. It's been a lot of like, how do we do what's best for the music, and how do we make the music something that's going to be special? And to people who will understand like what this music is all about, they're going to come and they're going to hang out here and they're going to have a great time. And the people who don't get it, well, there's lots of other music you can listen to. And like, I think that just like this first album has been really fun to work with, and having Lindsay on it has been a really wonderful full circle moment for me too, because
Yeah, I bet.
like she was somebody who inspired me in the early stages of my music career to really go for it and do what is most authentic to me. And I have to say, like, I give her a lot of shout outs and a lot of
Yeah.
credit. And I think that she absolutely deserves it because she's an amazing friend, an amazing person. And she's somebody who always has your back. And to me, having her on the album, especially like for like the lyrical content and stuff like that, like which I just gave to her and she absolutely knocked out of the park. She's such a professional and she's so talented at what she does. And above all, just an amazing person with so much integrity. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I've consulted a couple of times with Lindsay. I don't know her as well as you do, but I totally get what you're saying. She has such a great energy about her, and she really is just so encouraging and inspiring. So, yeah, I totally get what you're saying, man. And as you say, like the fact that she's on this record is awesome. I love that. As you said, the full circle moment of that. Yeah, it's beautiful, man. I love it.
Yeah, it is. I think this album has a lot of really good stories, and it did take 5 years to kind of manifest. But regardless of how much time it took, like it's like it was fun the whole way through, and it still is. Like we're still having a great time, and right now
That's
this
great, man.
Yeah, like we're in a place where we're kind of just enjoying like the feedback. We're enjoying what everyone else, because we're it's kind of like working. The album kind of to us is kind of like a mirror to us, which is kind of telling us about ourselves. Like we're learning a lot about ourselves through our fans, and they're telling us a lot about what we do that sometimes we don't always think about. We're sometimes they're just like, oh, well, this song reminds me of this band or this movie or this thing, and we're like, wow, that's really cool. Never thought of it that way. And it's amazing when you get to see how many lives you get to touch with like doing music. And that to me was something that I really wanted to do in my life, was to really give somebody a reason to follow their heart and to do what they love to do. And, regardless of no matter what it takes, if there's something that you want in life and that you want to make happen, it's really your responsibility to just go for it and take a chance and believe in yourself. Because, when you're doing something that is completely in alignment with you, that you feel is for you to experience, all of those things are going to line up for you. And it really happened for me because I met two guys who I can consider two of my best friends, and we're just so alike and we're so similar and we think so alike and we work so alike and we value so many of the same things. And above all, like we can just get together in a room and just like have a nice barbecue, or we can work on music. And whether we're just playing games, having a barbecue, making music, like it's all fun. Like it's not like we're separating, like here's the music time and we have to work and we have to be serious, and then here's the fun time. It's like sometimes those things kind of become the same thing, and then out of nowhere you just realize, wow, like we already have so much song material for our second album that it feels effortless to kind of just be with people who you work in harmony with and can create something that you all genuinely care about and genuinely love. And there's a thing that I read the other day, which was how art and love are the same thing, because art and love are both the ability to see something is the ability to see yourself in something that's not you. And that's kind of the way I see it. It's like, I feel like, we kind of see ourselves in this music and we put ourselves into it, which is why, whenever somebody tells us like that this album did something really special for them in such a short period of time too, or it really means something to them, that's always like just a moment of like, this is what I wanted 5 years ago to be real, which was just the ability to touch somebody's life with something that you created. And, although your art necessarily isn't you, it's an extension of you. You definitely feel it the same way, where it's like, wow, they appreciated something I did and I contributed something and I did something that was my life's purpose. And that was why, like, over the past 5 years, nowadays, I feel like I'm much calmer now, because I felt like for 5 years I was like the biggest thing in my life is that the world needs to hear this album. They need to know about it, because like this is something that is really special. And that was why we did the 3 days of dark fantasy metal, and we did the email list and all of that, because if we had just like made the album and then just like dropped it like I guess like a pile of laundry, and then it would just be like, okay, well, like I guess we have, I guess this is a thing, right? Cool. And then it would just kind of like fade into the night, and it would just be, all right, album 2. And then you just go into the same process, drop it like a pile of laundry. And then all of a sudden, like maybe at some point you'll have some moment where you'll have a bunch of people come in. But in the process of doing all of this, I've kind of learned that nothing happens overnight, and things kind of happen gradually. And 3 days of dark fantasy metal was a great way for people to get warmed up to who we were, see who we were behind the scenes, see who we were like as artists, and kind of have some curiosity as to like what else there is to dig underneath this sort of surface level understanding of what dark fantasy metal is, or what Blood of Indigo is. And then now that we're able to put out the album, it feels so good to just be like, here's the music. If you want to know what we're all about, like the main course of what we do will always be music. And we're going to be like, the way that we kind of work as like the way that we are, like just our whole way of being is like, Blood of Indigo is like a big cake, and it has lots of layers to it. Or if you want to say lasagna, because I'm Italian. It has multiple layers, right? So you can go like us as people, us as professionals, us as artists, as producers, as engineers, as writers, as lyricists, as vocalists, guitarists, keyboardists, whatever. And even just like the story element that ties into it, because naturally in a dark fantasy music, you're going to have a story with it. Kind of like if you were to make video games, like if you were to make like a video game which was like a side scroller game, but it's like the theme is castles and vampires, like Castlevania or something, you know, naturally what would make this more immersive is if things had a story, things had a journey. You're following a character, you're following something that's unraveling, and you're zooming out. And that's kind of how we make our music. We started with this album very zoomed in, and you're in like this universe of things happening, and you're kind of fueled by curiosity to see what's going to happen next. And what's going to happen next is we're going to zoom out a little more and a little more and a little more. So then you start kind of putting together all the pieces, and it works the same way as some of our favorite games do. It's like you play Dark Souls 3, and at a very surface level understanding as a gamer, you're gonna immerse yourself in this game, and you're gonna play it, you're gonna fight the bosses and say that was fun. And that's kind of like how listening to music goes too. You listen to music for the first time and you say, I like the riffs, I like the drums, I like the vocals, I like the orchestration, I like all this stuff on a surface level. And then the more times you listen to it, the more times you play the video game, the more times you invest yourself and your energy into discovering more about it, you realize that there are so many secrets and so many like gems that you can uncover, and so much to unravel, and so much to explore, and so much that you can make of it, that it really does end up having a life of its own. And eventually it's going to get to a point where it's bigger than us, and it really already is kind of getting there, where it's like the CD now belongs to you. It belongs to you, the fans, not to us anymore. It was on Mario's computer like a few years ago, but now it's on yours. So
yeah, man.
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely awesome, man. I was actually thinking to ask more about that in that we were talking about Memesis and this whole story or whatever, because I mentioned about Memesis, how about it being cinematic, and then with what you said, it really filled in that gap more, which is that like, yeah, that piece really does feel like musical storytelling, you know. And it makes sense that, as you say, you wrote the album basically and then went back and finished that track with themes from all over the album, because that's what I thought when I listened to it. Like this piece of music is telling the story here, you know. And then of course with the fantastic artwork that you guys have, which is absolutely awesome. Really, just such a great decision to go in that kind of direction to really kind of illustrate your world. But like, yeah, that, and then the fact that you have song titles with characters like Angelus and the Sphinx, you know, like boss, monster type kind of vibe. You know,
Yep.
it's really cool. So I just wanted to ask, like, I know that it's probably all quite involved because I know as well what it's like to make concepts and stuff. But like, I was just keen to get a bit more of an understanding of the world and the lore that you guys have going. And I'm assuming that you mentioned that you're focusing on lyrics. So is a lot of this kind of story coming from you, or how does that work?
Well, it's like at the very beginning, it was kind of just like, let's just make music. And that was where it started. And what inspired the idea of stories was like, I was watching Tales from the Crypt.
Wow, that's classic.
That TV show from 1993. Well, actually, I think it ended in 1993. It started in like 1988 or 9, I think. But it was like the live action Tales from the Crypt, which was based on the comic books. And oftentimes they would reference the comic books like in that, and these TV shows would be based on comics. And at that time, I was like really reveled in the idea of like, wow, like making a comic book or something. That would be really cool. Like kind of telling a story that would go beyond just something. It would take you into an entire ecosystem. It wouldn't just be at face value, here's music and here's a song about me breaking up with my girlfriend or something. It's like on one level it could be about that, but then on another it's another thing, and then another thing. It's like I think of everything kind of like cakes or lasagna.
Everything is lasagna, yeah.
Everything is lasagna when you're Italian. You walk in and Donna's like, "Hey, come here, lasagna, yeah." Sit down. You know, like
nice.
Yeah. I think that yeah, it all kind of works in a way where like it starts with like it starts with the characters to me. I think that characters are one of the most important things to introduce to a story, because people relate to people more than they relate to situations. At least that's how I feel. Everyone kind of has a different way of approaching storytelling and how they like to do it. But I think like initially it started out with like, I like the idea of comic books. I like the idea of storytelling. And I like the idea of branching out into different things and making everything kind of connected as like an ecosystem, rather than just as like something that's one dimensional. Because like you have something that is what you do at its core. Like you have music being, this is what people come here to see. Like the slogan is, like, at least in my brain, is people come to listen to the music. Yeah, that's why they come. Cool. They come here to listen to the music. Everything else is like the next level of, okay, so now that you've heard the music, do you want to know more? If not, you can always turn back and go the other way and listen to another song. Like, and just listen to the music at face value. And there's nothing wrong with that. And you can take the music and you can make your own worlds out of it. That's the beauty of music and art in general. But yeah, like to kind of like dive more into where the lore is coming from. It's like you have like a lot of different things that are kind of happening at the same time. And Dawn of the Shaded World is everything happening, like all the craziness happening at once. Because to me, it's like, if you're going to go in, like start with all of your ideas, like idea soup, and just throw it all in and see what happens. Doesn't matter if it works or it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, like, who cares? Like it's some people make things that suck, and that's fine. And some people make things that are great, and that's even better. But I just thought of it as like, okay, like we have these songs, like my love for video games, and like especially Bloodborne. I was playing Bloodborne at the time when like I was coming up with like more of like the ideas for characters as song titles, because I feel like that's an interesting way to name a song, like after a character, because you can relate to a person. And it also kind of feels like you're fighting a boss, because I would look at the boss names of like Bloodborne, and it would just be like, you know, like all these really cool names, like the Blood-Starved Beast, or like Father Gascoigne, or like all these like really, or like the Orphan of Cause, or Mikolash, the Host of the Nightmare. I was like, wow, these are so, and I've always been enamored by names. I always loved like the names of things.
Titles as well, it makes it super epic.
Yeah, like titles and names, and the title screen that comes on like at the beginning of the movie. Like, you know, I have like this weird obsession with title screens in movies where like you watch like you watch like Pet Cemetery and the fucking title screen fades on, and you hear like these like dropping choir sounds that makes like your bones chill. And like you feel your breath going cold, and you're like, wow, that's like makes you feel something just by looking at words. And I think, I don't know if it's a vocalist or a lyricist thing, but when I look at words sometimes, like I feel the words.
Man, like, I'm totally with you. I mean, the first one that comes to my mind is just like Star Wars, right? And that intro music is so iconic. But the thing is, I just wanted to butt in because I couldn't help but be reminded of you also saying about wrestling and the intro music. Yep. Right, because I feel like that kind of ties into a similar thing there, that you're really into that kind of impactful introduction moment. A bold
entrance. Yeah, that's what it is. It's like that. It's like start your show hot. It's like come out with it's like if you came out and just did nothing and just like, it's like, imagine this, like you have like the most like epic show you've been waiting for, and like people always remember the first and last thing. So whatever happens in the middle is like, it's kind of like things that are setting up payoffs and individual sort of arcs and things that are occurring, right? But if you really want to get somebody's attention, like come out and say like, and I learned this from journalism actually, which is like the first sentence you write has to be striking, has to be buzzworthy. And it's like, imagine if like you went to a show and you were watching and you were told this is the most epic show of all time. But the first thing that happened was like the guy walks out and says, "Hey guys, sorry to bother you all. I just wanted to let you know that I have a match against this guy that I'm going to fight in about 30 minutes. So if you happen to be in the audience and you're not getting popcorn right now, I apologize if I'm getting in your way, and I'm being very Canadian about this, but I'm going to go to Tim Hortons. I'm going to come back. And when I come back, if you're still here, I'm going to like put on the best show ever. Is that okay?" No, it's boring. Whereas if you come out and you're just like, here we are, this is the coolest thing of all time. The fireworks are going off, and then the band comes out and the front man looks at the audience like, it's just like, thank you for being here. You've made my life so much better, and let's fucking do this. And then you put on like the coolest song of all time. The fan favorite comes on first. Everyone there is like, the first thing they did was they gave us a payoff, because you immediately just go from, I wonder what this is, because really the buildup is showing up, if you think about it, because sometimes like showing up to something is like, is it going to be good? I don't know what's going to happen. And then walking in the door immediately is the payoff. You're like, okay, it's safe to be here. This is good stuff right now. And I guess to go more into the lore stuff, because you were asking before, it's like the way that the lore stuff is set up in our music is like, everything is very like, it's all happen. It's like every album is a different timeline of things happening. And sometimes we kind of bring in things that are happening from other places to give you hints as to what's happening somewhere else. And like, it's not a typical concept album where it's like, this is an album about this thing that happens. And it's like song one,
linear story.
Yeah, because I feel like that kind of takes away from some of the creativity that can go into it on all parts, because like, I think that there are so many things that like we can do as a band that can like enhance this. Like, I feel like more of what we're doing is a lot of world building, and there's a lot of like plots and things happening in the background as you're listening. Kind of like how, Bloodborne has a story that has happened already and has a thing that you can look into and read about, and history that you can read about. That's kind of the same way of like, if you start looking into the lore of our stuff, you can kind of start to, right now, as of like what we've given you at this point in time, is you can use the music and you can use the illustrations to kind of see like what's connected and what isn't. And you can see some things like the Memesis. I actually have the album with me right now.
Oh yeah.
Like, I can show you some cool stuff here. Like, one of the big things that people notice is on the Memesis artwork, you see Jade is looking in the mirror and seeing Anne-Marie. And there's a big hint there. Can you figure out what that hint might be?
Well, considering the reflective qualities of a mirror, I would assume that there is something in that.
Yeah, and then this one too for Resurrection. This is Jade also with a doll in her hand, which is kind of cool. And then we'll take you down to Anne Marie, and here she is in all of her glory.
Nice.
So it's kind of like, yeah. So there's a big connection there going on.
So you meant, so you're jumping the timeline in throughout different songs on the album.
It depends on which it depends on which song you listen to. Some songs happen in succession. Sometimes it's a different event happening, but it's all within the same world. And from different albums, you're going to have different songs. I'm looking at it more from like, this is an event. The most important event is the name of the album, and that's where most of the events are taking place. And then on the next album, the overall theme is going to be the name of the album, and then you're going to have references to Dawn of the Shaded World, references to the next album, and then things that are going on currently in that world. So I think that Dawn of the Shaded World focuses mostly on Angelus. It's a lot of Angelus adventures, and then there is another character we're going to be introducing in album 2 who you're going to learn about, who's kind of like his rival, and his name is Caparillo, and he's a character I made when I was a kid. And I decided to bring him back as an adult because I felt like I still had a connection to him. And I felt like he was kind of everything that represented the kind of the light and the innocent and the naive of a protagonist, somebody who's very flawed, doesn't make very good decisions, but he's still doing his best and trying to figure it out. And then you have Angelus, who is like this anti-hero, kind of like angry guy who is kind of not really realizing what is happening, but he's kind of just trying to figure it out. So it gives you different characters that you can kind of relate to and see yourself in them. And that's kind of like what the music does, is it really immerses you into the feel of what the emotions of the character is in that moment. And some songs are more based on moments and scenes, and you have kind of a narrator kind of telling the story of like what is happening.
Well, you had the actual narration on one track, right? Was it on Novice Pyromancy where you had an actual kind of dialogue there? That was really, really cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's a big reference to album 2. There's that's the one song that kind of takes you. That one does take you into an album 2 kind of timeline for a moment. There's kind of like a bit of some. There's a little bit of that energy going on, like in different places. Like Dawn of the Shaded World as a title track is kind of something that happens before Angelus's time too. That's another thing. So
I'm assuming it's something to do with the dawn of the world, right? So
yeah, this is
like Genesis type situation.
Yeah, it's like this new world that's being created, and it's kind of like walking into your shadow. That's kind of like what that song is really about. It's
the shadow realm.
Yeah, and whether like that's like Yu-Gi-Oh.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you kind of walk into yourself and kind of embrace the parts of you that were never really understood, and in that you're creating something new. And like I think that Dawn of the Shaded World as a track is probably one of my favorite songs on the album, because there's just so much to dive into.
Epic finale, yeah, man, totally. And that's with Lindsay as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like there's so much to really dive into, and like we were saying, like not every song is always so linear. It's more just like you're kind of like in a world with a series of things that are happening that are kind of giving you the theme of this album. Yeah, and with every album, we zoom out more and more so you can immerse yourself in more of this and start connecting the dots between songs and albums and illustrations and seeing what everything is kind of growing into.
Yeah, that's so cool. I really love that way of going about it. As you say, I think you set yourself up for maximum creativity with this kind of format because as you mentioned.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I love the idea that, as you say, it's all very conceptual. There is this world, and you said about jumping different styles and things like that, but it certainly has a contingency to it. It does feel very like coherent as an album, and all of the things fit together obviously really well, and it all has, as you say, this theme and the dark fantasy thing that brings it all together. So yeah, super cool. And
thank you.
Yeah, I think you guys have done a great job of conveying what it is you want to do. You know, I mean, it's awesome to hear you like speak all about it, but like you are also presenting that really well and putting that out really well.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad. Sometimes I'm like, I hope all of this makes sense, because I think like that's kind of just my creative process. I like to have a lot of freedom and a lot of space to just kind of play around and have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sure.
I think that like sometimes we look at art in a way where we say like, oh, well, this is the proper way to do things. This is the only way to do things. And I think that if we did everything like the same, then we would never experience anything new, anything different. And the thing about art and music, or really any kind of like community or culture, is that you're always going to have, you know, people who are going to love it, some people who aren't really going to get it, and they're going to be like, this isn't for me. But, you know, I think that like what our goal is to be ourselves. And if if that resonates with other people, then we're always so happy to see that, because I think that really what I think and something that Lindsay asked me to, I'm going to bring Lindsay into this because this is like a really wonderful thing that she asked me before I started my music career, which I think that every artist should ask themselves the same question too, because it opens a lot of doors for you. And that question is, what is it that you want to contribute to music? And when I first heard that question, I was like, that's probably like the most like inspiring question anybody could ever ask, because what do you want to contribute? Because as human beings, like we all have something that we want to contribute. We all have something that we want to bring to the universe. And I think that to me, it's like whatever your most authentic expression of creativity is going to give you more energy to do that thing. And the more of it you do, the more of it you're going to get. And it's so wonderful seeing like even just like and yeah, we have been making the album for 5 years, but only recently, over the last year since we started doing the live streams and all of that, was really when people started seeing the potential in this, and like coming by to see like people like yourself, William, who would come to our social media and give us so much support and comment on things and show it to their friends. You know, these are things that allows people to discover not even just us as like artists or musicians or as creatives, but what it does is it really does, like what we're discovering now is that it really does help other people to really be themselves in their creations, and to focus on things like good friends and good values and integrity, and just having fun and not worrying so much about like what like the status quo of what the proper thing to do is, because at the end of the day, even if you follow the rules and you do everything like properly, quote unquote, you're still going to get criticism. Like there's no way out of feeling that sort of you know, there's no way out of it, so you might as well do what you want to do.
Yeah, right on, man. That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite things that you said today, was about how you guys just enjoy it so much, how you guys just, you know, are best buds, and you hang out, you play video games and have barbecues and make music. And it's just, that's the whole part of the process. And at that point, man, like who cares if it takes 5 years? Like if you're enjoying the journey and the process, then that's what it's all about, man.
Yeah, that really is what it's all about. And I think like, as we did a virtual meet and greet with some of our really amazing fans, and Louis was actually, you mentioned Louis at the beginning of the podcast.
I saw that, yeah.
And
I saw he was there.
Yeah, he was there, and by the way, he's an excellent musician and composer himself. So I gotta give him a big shout out to Louis, man. He definitely knows his stuff, and he's very talented.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, Louis is awesome, man, for sure. We're good buds as well. Yeah.
Oh,
big shout out to him.
Big shout out to Louis. He's the man, and he's been very kind to us as well. He's had very wonderful things to say about us, and he came for the meet and greet, and he picked up an album, and he's just a really great guy who really is passionate about music, and along with all of our other fans as well who came to the meet and greet. Like we had some really wonderful people who came by who really express their passion for the music and for us as people. And we talked about just like what kind of meet and greets we would want to do, and like in person, because like, well, for obvious reasons, we're in different countries in different parts of the world. It's especially nowadays, it's more complicated to organize these types of things on a frequent basis and just on the fly. But yeah, so we were talking about kind of just like how we would organize that. And I think to me, it's like, if we can organize it ourselves and have everything our way, we would just have everyone just come and hang out in a room. We'll order a pizza, we'll play some games, and just chill on a couch and hang out with people like friends. Because I think that's where the music business is kind of heading these days, which is treating your fans like friends and not like numbers. And and we're all just human beings, right? Like we're all just people who, and we're people who have a lot of things in common. So if you like our music, you'll probably really like us because we like a lot of the same things.
Yeah, that's it, man. I'm totally with you. I mean, as you say, the industry does move more and more in that way, and it's been going around for a long time now, the whole kind of 1,000 true fans theory. And increasingly more so, it becomes even more like, I've seen it even floating around, the concept of how that can actually really be just 100 true fans, you know? And as you say, at that point, it really comes to being more about, you know, nurturing a kind of close-knit community. Like, as you say, just a bigger club of friends, basically. And yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah, that's really is what it becomes. It becomes like, and that's like the 100 true fan, 1,000 or 100 true fans. I think it might be 100, but it was a Leah McHenry thing. She's the founder and CEO of Savvy Musician Academy, and that was and I have to say a big shout out to Leah and her team for just like being really awesome, because I took her program like during COVID. And learned a lot about branding and marketing and strengthening relationships with people, and making friends with people, and making friends and putting yourself out there as your authentic self, your interests, and like things that you like to do. Because at the end of the day, your fans should be people that you would want to hang out with in real life. Because and lucky for us, like our fans are such wonderful people, such nice people who we consider friends. And we have been able to like build a really strong relationship with them over the course of however long we've been building our email lists, I think, or even before that. Even we had just put out like a demo of Resurrection in 2018 maybe, and that was when we started bringing some eyeballs to Blood of Indigo, and that was when people kind of found out about us for the very first time. And it just kind of grew from there, with like just honestly being ourselves, and just and just like it's really like, the funny thing is, like, some people didn't really know what we were at first. They were like, is this like a Dark Souls meme page? And and I'll just post illustrations. Yeah, I mean, like, for the most part, like, that's what social media is. It's just talking to people, right? It's just being social, sharing your interests. And I got a lot of practice just posting Dark Souls memes and having to explain to people what it is that we were, like 1,000 times. And that made me really good at explaining what we do now.
Yeah, exactly, man. That's it.
Yeah. So it's really great. Like, you don't have to be world famous in order to make a living doing music or doing what you love. You really just have to put yourself out there and do your best and grow it like a grassroots movement, and let people know that it's special. And it really is, because it really is something that, like, it is our life. For all of us, it's our life purpose to make music and to entertain people and to give people something new and innovative. I think that's what a lot of the people from like the millennial generation have the kind of, like, I guess, the blessing and the curse of doing, which is providing innovation to a world that is still trying to, become more and more aware of itself.
Yeah, you're right. It's a very interesting challenge that we find ourselves with. But yeah, I really, really like your thoughts on these topics, and it's cool. I know that we have a lot of similar touch points and about like Seven Musician Academy and stuff, Leah McHenry, and I obviously Lindsay as well, and you work with Curtis and C Squared and stuff too, right?
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, so yeah, it's really cool that philosophy, especially this whole thing of like a kind of grassroots approach to things it's the way forward, I think. And yeah, I think that you're doing a great job with that, man.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I definitely think that like that's more relatable to people, I think, because I think now like we're kind of gravitating towards like authenticity, being yourself, realizing that everyone has something to contribute to this universe, so we can if we all just be ourselves and we become the best version of ourselves, then we can all and see the best in others and like understand where we can also make improvements, and seeing ourselves as seeing each person as an ecosystem, and seeing like kind of like how we all have so many things to contribute and so many things to build. That's kind of how I think all these cool things kind of came about, even with our music, because there are certain things that I'm not good at that Mario is excellent at, and certain things that like Nathan is excellent at that neither of us are good at, and things that I'm good at that Nathan is still looking to improve on, or Mario, or vice versa. All of us are kind of good at different things because everybody has something unique to contribute to the project. And I think that on a like just kind of like on a world scale, everyone has unique talents, gifts, and something to provide. And I think that I think if we all kind of like nurture that ability to let people be themselves and let people do what is meant for them to do, then I think that we'll have a lot of people who are very fulfilled and happy with what they're doing. And I can tell you firsthand, like making this album has been like the most fulfilling experience of my professional life in anything, because amazing, it's one of those things that started out as an idea and then gave everything I had to make this something special. And I still do. I'm still, and I mean, I'm not perfect either, because sometimes like we make mistakes, sometimes we try things, and sometimes it doesn't always work, because asking yourself to be perfect is just cruel. Like it's like, that's like asking yourself not to learn. Ask yourself to know everything. It's like it's like one of those cartoons where the guy gets a genie in a bottle and says, "I wish I knew everything," and then nothing happens after that. It's like, great, you know everything. So now that you know everything, it's like knowing everything is endedness. So if there's endedness, then there's nothing to experience. So
for sure. For sure. I'm completely with you, man. Yeah, I love that. We could probably speak about this kind of more philosophical stuff, all day. But I'm curious then, to just bring it back a little bit more as we start to kind of wrap things up, with the band in general. Obviously, I'm sure you've got plenty of plans that, secrets and things that you won't want to reveal yet. But what are your plans, and what are things that you can share? And one thing I'm also interested in is like, do you have plans to play live? Is that a part of your vision here, or is it more studio project? What's the deal with that stuff?
Yeah, so we've been planning to play live for a really long time, and it's actually kind of hard to not just be like, when do we like can we just do this right now? It's kind of like that SpongeBob episode where like SpongeBob is like, can we have a Krabby Patty now? And he's like, no, not yet, little grasshopper, and he like swats him on the grill. Like that's kind of like what it is like right now, kind of, because
Nice.
Like the plans are, as far as plans, it's like we want to play live. We're working on the second album right now, and we also want to start doing music videos so you guys can see what we look like playing our instruments and performing.
Nice.
But the order of events that has to happen for us is, first the music video needs to come out, maybe one, maybe two, who knows how many other will come after that.
Nice.
And then we're going to start working in performing live. So our very first show is going to, like, most likely, unless if like, I guess the gods are against this idea, but like we want to play in our hometown of Toronto. We want to play for our hometown audience, and we want to make it the best show that we can make it. We want to make it.
For sure.
We want to have the best guys on stage with us, playing the other instruments.
Yeah, you're gonna need a drummer, right?
Yeah, we already have some people in mind.
Oh, cool.
But
Cool.
nothing's official yet.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, like we wanna play live. We want to play in Toronto. We want to make it like the most memorable show we can make it. We want to make it a spectacle, something special, because it's something that even promoters in Toronto have been asking us, like, are you guys going to play live yet? Are you guys going to play live? Like, can you book your show with me? You know, like we've been getting that
Nice.
for years.
Yeah,
but
I bet.
I'm not saying that to be like, well, we have everybody asking us to play live. You know, like it's not necessarily like that. It's actually a lot more difficult because we're just like, oh man, like we got to turn this down again. Because it's just like we wanted to release the album first, and we kind of took like that Savvy Musician Academy approach to like release your music first, then worry about playing live, because playing live is like the cherry on top, and everything else is like the chocolate sundae. And
lasagna.
at the lasagna, everybody gets mad at me for making all these food metaphors, because they're just like, they're just like, damn it, Alex, I'm hungry now. But yeah, like that's really how.
I mean, Savvy Musician is the initial course, at least, is called The Online Musician, right? So it is all based around the whole kind of online aspect of things. And yeah, I guess you build your infrastructure and your foundation with that. So
yeah, like you build your fan base that way, and then you build you get your fans online. All your fans are there. All the fans in the world are online.
Sure.
Like you don't have to go anywhere when you're building your foundation. It's like release your record, let people know what you sound like, and let them know what you look like. Like get a nice professional band shoot done, and build your branding and the atmosphere, what it feels like, and all of that. And you can go as far as you want with that. Like there's really no limit to how much you can put into the imaging and into the branding and into the music. Like you can go as far as you want with that. And then the next thing for us is like, we want to do a music video. We did the 2 illustration videos because we wanted to like show you more of the storytelling element first, to kind of give you that layer of the cake. And then we start zooming out more, kind of like I was saying before. And then you're going to see us as musicians, and then everything kind of happens in a place, like everything happens on its own plate, where like, it's just funny because that's how I eat sometimes. It's like here's your cucumbers, and then here's your tomatoes, and then here's the chicken cutlets, and then here's the broccoli. And then like you kind of have like you have like all these food metaphors. You have all and then the dessert is later. Like all these things come out one at a time, so you can enjoy each of those things and taste.
This is Italian dining, right?
See, like never mind being a musician, I should be a cook or a chef, having my own cooking show, Cooking with Alex.
That's sick.
We're gonna is chicken nuggets and fries. and then we move into pasta, but depends on what time of night it is, or what we've been doing for the day. And then maybe we'll have a pizza, and if Mario's here, we're gonna make coffee because he loves his coffee. But and he also makes the best coffee ever. Nice. But like it's kind of like it's one thing at a time, right? We started with the music, we started with the CD. Next, it's going to be music videos, and then we're going to work into live. And of course, we're going to have the second album kind of working in the background of all of that. And who knows how things will turn out? Like we might have the second album out before we play live, or we might play live before the second album is out. It's all a matter of how things are planned. And I think that even like just planning everything and making sure that things are like actually promoted properly, make sure that you have a proper campaign set up, that there's notice so the press can get a hold of like your music, they can listen to it, do reviews, do interviews like this awesome interview right now. You want to make sure that everything is organized and things happen one at a time, so you can digest each thing. So then it's not all happening at once. So it's kind of like with that guy who orders every single topping on his burger, where it's like, you want some beef with that burger, man?
Wow, you really are full of food metaphors.
I really am.
You have a food metaphor for everything.
Man, I'm telling you, like I got to start a cooking show or something.
For sure.
But yeah, that's really the plan, man. It's like we're gonna start with the next thing for us is really getting a music video going.
That's cool.
Or a couple. We want to do one. I know, like, you hear it here first.
From Dawn of the Shaded World, right?
Yeah, for Dawn of the Shaded World. So I think, and you heard it here first, that we're like, I think like it's a 99% go that Resurrection is going to be a music video.
Oh yeah,
and that one exclusive. That one has Breaking a lot of history. That's an exclusive.
Yeah, clearly, which we've learned. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
like, you said there was a demo in 2018. I suppose, did that get like removed at some point, or do you have that?
Yeah, it was on YouTube for a while. We sat there listening to it, and all of us just kind of made a face of like, this can be so much better.
For sure,
this version can't be on the album. So we just kind of took it off. I mean, at one point, maybe we can make it an exclusive or something. Like if you sign up
bonus track or whatever.
Like a bonus track, anything like that. I think it'll be good for the history books one day because we still have that version somewhere. Sure. And then there's an even older version of Resurrection, which was the demo version that Nathan heard that he put his orchestrations to.
Wow.
There's a lot of history in one album.
Yeah. Well, yeah, 5 years, man. Like, yeah, it's a hell of a journey. But I mean, with that kind of thing, I know what it's like. I had a band as well, and an album that sort of got strung out over years. And it's not so much that it takes 5 years to record it. It's really like it's the transformative kind of journey that you all have to sort of take to get there, you know? I mean,
exactly.
Like that to have this kind of like production level and everything that you guys have, like you have to get there as people to be able to get to this point. So,
absolutely. Like I couldn't agree more, because like even when we started, the production wasn't as polished as it is now. And album 2's production is probably like we're like I think as every band strives to improve, we want to make the production on the second album even better.
Mm-hmm.
And everything, and even lyrical content for me, and vocal performance wise, I feel like I've become a better vocalist since those recordings even.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that even as musicians, like we've become better musicians, and we want to get some features on the next one, which we have been. I don't want to spoil anything yet, and nothing is set in stone, but we've been having some conversations about who we want to have on the next one, doing even like some instrumental features like that like that would be really cool. But like you said, like you really got to get there, like you really got to grow with the music and really grow with your art, because like you can't you can't judge yourself based on something that you did 5 years ago, or something that you can't look at yourself and be like, oh, I hate this is so awful. Like you really have to.
It's beautiful. It's a part of your journey. As you say, you have these different versions of Resurrection, and in the long run, that's just going to tell a story, isn't it? It's going to.
It does.
Here's our progress.
Yeah, it's really like, and like I said, it's a grassroots movement for us. Really, like we feel like we're really just three guys who just became really good friends and wanted to do what we loved, and we had something that we wanted to be innovative in our journey. We wanted to take on the role of innovating the symphonic metal genre in the best way that we could. Mm-hmm. And to us, it was like, well, what does symphonic metal really need right now? Well, I think it needs like our special touch of whatever that is. And it's like, well, what do you like to hear in music? Well, if you ask yourself that question honestly, then, because to me and Mario and Nathan always thought like, first, what we wanted to give to symphonic metal was just make something really massive and evil, and not always necessarily like the black metal genre. We wanted to use elements from black metal to create some of the songs, but not just be limited to one style. We wanted to make it like a feeling. We wanted to make the music based on what does this feel like? Where does this music take you? What sort of story or message is being conveyed here? And what can this do for your imagination? And even on the album, inside the booklet, there is a meditation that I wrote after reading a bunch of books like on like these like sort of spiritual practices for like kind of immersing yourself into yourself and kind of learning more about like yourself, really. There's a part at the very end here, which is like this is where the credits are, by the way. Lots of really wonderful people. In the last page of the booklet where the thank you is, it's like a it's kind of like this really nice passage, which is kind of like telling you that it's a gift from us to you, and we made this kind of with our hearts and gave you something that was coming from a place of honesty. And before you listen to this album, like, do this practice where basically you're kind of taking all the energy which is coming from something that was trying to make you something that you're not. You're kind of crushing that energy and letting it reform into something that is yours. And that's kind of like what happens with music a lot, or writing, even books, writing stories, writing movies. Like when you make a character that is about something that happened to you, or that's something that's that's relatable, you're kind of taking those raw materials from whatever that experience was, or whatever that person taught you, or whatever that situation gave to you in your lifetime, and you're kind of just like letting it reform into your own expression of what is you, and putting an extension of you into the world, which I think every artist aims to do, and wants to have as many people experience that feeling as they can.
Oh, I love that, man. That's really nice.
I get very philosophical really cool. Sometimes.
Yeah, I love that, man. Yeah. I share your wavelength, so it's really cool. I'm really glad to kind of get to see this spectrum of sides of your character, and it's really cool, man. Just makes me admire and respect everything that you're doing even more. So yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, man.
I mean, it's really been a pleasure. We've been going for a little while now, so
yeah,
no doubt we could chat.
We could talk forever, man. Like I'm yeah, like
so. All I was gonna say is we should probably kind of look to wrap things up for this one, and perhaps continue the conversation at another point. But like, is there anything in particular that you want to say? Obviously, the album and everything, and anything that you want to get in there, really, before we completely finish up.
The first thing I want to say is just thank you. I really want to say thank you to all of the people who believed in us, like a brand new band with no music and just kind of got to know us through watching us like make the music on laptop screens and Instagram videos, and just watching us kind of grow. And I think that's like really the beauty of social media, is that now you can really watch an artist grow from whatever point they're at, and to the next desired outcome, to the next desired outcome, to whatever it may be. And really, I think that without our fans, like, we wouldn't have that same drive to, and I know it sounds kind of cheesy for people to say sometimes, like, oh, well, the fans are everything, but they really are, because they give us so much energy and so much inspiration to really do something that lets us know that we're doing something good and we're doing something right with our lives. And it's always validating whenever somebody can tell you that what you did was something special to me and it meant something to me, and what that thing that you did allowed me to make something that I wanted to create because it was inspiring to me to do that. And that's really what I hope this music will do. So I want to just thank all of our most passionate fans, and anybody who has ever decided to just pick up one of our songs on Spotify from a random playlist, or like listen to us on YouTube, or just saw an illustration they liked on Instagram and liked it. Any kind of support has been just incredible, and is really kind of contributing to our own expansion and our own growth as not only as artists but as people. And we've learned a lot about ourselves in the past few months just from this campaign and the promo and the album itself. So really, I just first want to say thank you to all our fans, because you guys are awesome, and you guys are really the lifeblood of what we do. And I know it's a lot of people say that, but it's very true. Like it really has and really is helping us grow every step of the way. But I also want to thank everyone who was part of making this album, because it may seem like it was just me, Mario, and Nathan, but there are so many people who made this album incredible just because of what they gave to it. And one of those people who I have to give the biggest thank you to is to Loren Tyr, our illustrator, who I've built a very strong relationship with over the past 5 years. And she is just somebody who is like kind of like similar to the relationship that me and Nathan have over just like, I give you the ideas that I have in my head, and then like you can take them to another level and make them even better in a lot of cases. And that was kind of what that relationship with me and Loren was, or is, because me and Loren work together very closely, and she's also been so helpful in making everything, all the world building elements come together. And sometimes she has like, even sometimes she'll make a character even more interesting than what I saw in my head, which is really cool. And yeah, she is just incredible. She's so professional, so good at what she does, and so passionate too. And we have a really great relationship just talking on Instagram. And I think there's a little bit of a language barrier because her first language is Spanish, and I think her second language is English. And sometimes like, you know, like even like trying to articulate the ideas has been like, you know, so it has been like an interesting challenge where like you have to be even more descriptive with what you want. And sometimes that actually brings about even better results. And I have to applaud her with her patience with just like the amount of just like random ideas at 2 a.m. I sent her saying like, what if Angelus had like a really cool scar on his hand and like, or on his face, and like it was this kind of symbolism for this other thing that you'll find out later about, or whatever. And she was like, I'm onto it. Cool. Sounds great. Amazing. What if we did this too? And I'm like, even better, because even especially in the illustration videos where I would just kind of storyboard everything and send it to her, she would like say, let's add another shot like this to make this part make more sense. And I'm like, perfect. This is awesome. So she definitely goes above and beyond for all of our illustrations and has created such a beautiful world building experience for us that we can go even deeper into. And even in the second album, I'm so excited to work with her even more and create more compelling characters and more storylines and more great music that is going to have that sort of enhancement with all that illustration that comes with it too, because it really does contribute to the experience. So I just got to say a big thank you to Loren. And I guess just one more big thank you just to everybody who contributed. Also, I thanked Lindsay earlier in the podcast, but I have to say thank you to Lindsay again. Thank you so much for being such an incredible friend and always being there for me and always having my back. And she's always somebody I can always go to talk to about anything, and has always been there to be a supportive friend. Even in the beginning when we were launching the album, she was giving us great advice and giving us like really good people to work with and things to do that would help us get to the next level. And she's just such an amazing person to work with, not only as a professional, but as a friend. So big thank you to Lindsay for being awesome as always. And then of course, big thank you to everybody who just made this album special. And whether it be video editing stuff from our friend Louis, he's Louis Escalara, and I believe he's from Mexico, but he did an excellent job on the Sphinx video. And just everyone else who contributed. You all know who you are. You guys, a lot of you are thanked in the album. So, I mean, everyone who contributed to this album was thanked, of course. And I also have to give another big shout out to one of my friends, one of my best friends. His name is Lucas Mucilli, and he played bass on the record. And he contributed some of his excellent creativity and his masterful playing on his instrument to make the songs even better and take them to the next level on in such a incredible way. And I just gotta say he's an awesome dude and just an amazing musician. And we had a lot of fun working with him on the bass sections for all of the tracks. So many people to thank, man. But above all, I got to thank you, William, for having me on the podcast. It's like, I know you've been a big supporter, and you've given me so much time to just kind of talk and ramble, because I tend to do that.
It's been a pleasure.
I mean, like, it's like, this has been a really fun podcast, because I felt like kind of similar to the making of the music experience. It was like, you allowed me to really dive into my ideas, which sometimes I get very descriptive with and kind of go off track with, but I try my best to kind of condense them. But like, your support has been just absolutely phenomenal. I always see you in the comment section, always liking our stuff, sending really nice comments and listening to our music, because, you know, it's with your help and with your contribution to the music business and what you're doing in this interview right here, which is what's helping bands like us take our careers to the next level and allow us to create a better experience for you and for the people who want to enjoy this type of music. Because I think that at the end of the day, we want to make the music industry a better place to work and a better place to be and a better place to enjoy music. And we want everyone to feel like they're welcomed and they're part of that experience and that they can be inspired and have fun with it and feel like this is something that we all have a part of being part of, because Blood of Indigo is not just me, Mario, and Nathan. It's you too. It's everybody that is part of this community and who believes in us and who is there with us every step of the way to help us become more and more successful and get to the next level of what we want to contribute to the music business next.
Amazing. That's amazing, man. Yeah.
Thank you.
Dude, really cool. It's really been an absolute pleasure, man. Like I'm all about that, just giving that space and then you talking. It's been an absolute pleasure to hear you talk about these things, man. Like really appreciate you opening up about all of that here on the podcast. So yeah, really appreciate it. And man, I really just truly respect and admire what you guys are doing. I have followed you guys and engaged with you since I first came across you because I love it, man. I love what you guys are doing. I love the imagery. I love the music. Like, you guys are really great people. And so, man, I totally believe in it. And, I admire how you've been kind of slow and steady, but I think that you have a good head on you and, you're going in a really, really good direction. And so I fully believe, man, that Blood of Indigo is going to take over the symphonic metal world.
Well, thank you. It's very kind of you to say that, man.
It's dark fantasy metal champions, world champions, something like that, right? You got the wrestling belts.
Yeah, we got the wrestling belts. And the funny story behind that is it was a gift to the guys from me. Because I felt like it was, we made that album and we were just, when it was done and it was finally done, like, I think like we kind of had like this feeling of relief. Like, it was like, well, you know what, if at the end of the day, like, no matter how this goes, like, we made something here. And now the next thing is get people to hear this album. And the way we celebrated was like, you know what, like, we feel like champions. Like, we feel like we just won the tag team championships. And like, really, like, the cool thing about a tag team is like, it's a team effort and everyone contributes something special to make the team move forward. And, I felt like if there was anything that was going to kind of like solidify a friendship, it's a championship belt. I mean, we're not going to, I mean, like there are so many things that you can do. And like, me and Mario were big wrestling fans. And I think Nathan is a little newer to the world of wrestling, but me and Mario grew up fans. And I was like, just kind of as a joke one day, we were just like, well, what if we had like our own championship belt? And it kind of started from the Castle Indigo live stream series where I would just introduce myself as 1/3 of the Dark Fantasy Metal World Tag Team Champions. So I thought it was funny. And then it just kind of became a real thing, like, very quickly. And then I found this guy who, really cool guy who manufactures championship belts for wrestlers, and some of the guys in AEW and some of the guys, I think some of like the former WWE guys, he made some championship belts for some wrestling promotions as well. He made a belt for Edge. And his name is on Instagram, he's JB Toys, and his name is Jordan Brennan, I think. Yeah, that's his name. His name's Jordan. And he's a really nice dude. And I just approached him and said, like, hey, we want to make a championship belt for our band. And he was like, and I kind of gave him like some ideas of like what the design would be inspired by, because me and the guys sat down and actually like talked about like, if we were to actually do this, what would we do? And I was like, all right, guys, it's happening. I'm getting you guys belts. We're celebrating the album. And they were just like, no way, that's not actually happening, is it? And then just like a few weeks later, like I like just talked to Jordan. He designed the belts. He's incredibly professional and does an amazing job. If you ever want to make a custom championship belt, he's the guy. He made it. It's like it's a solid, beautiful championship that like is just inspired by us. It has the purple strap on it, and I got it for the guys, and the first reaction was, I can't believe we have a fucking championship. And then we took the photo, and it was like a celebration. It's kind of like, it's almost like a wedding ring, but it's a championship belt. It's like, you guys are my homies for life. So here's your belt. It's got your name on it. And, you know, we strive for excellence in everything that we do, and we do it with pure authenticity, and we 100% just show up and just do what we want to do. And we kick imposter syndrome to the curb and say, you know what, like, it doesn't matter. We have one life to live here, man. It's like, are we going to sit here and try to impress everybody, or are we going to do what makes us happy? And then the answer was the latter. So we were like, you know what, like, let's just go for it. Let's make an album that's us, and let's make that our motto. Do every album that's going to be something that's coming from the heart. And no matter how long it takes, no matter what amount of energy it's going to take to do it, we're going to do it until it's exactly the way we wanted it to be. And the payoff has been incredible for that. So, like any traditional wrestling storyline, the payoff has to be good. So, I think we worked pretty hard. So, the championship belt is really just a symbol of good friends, good times, and just going for what you want and having fun. That's really what it's all about. It's not about being better than anybody else, because like, it's not what the message is. The message is just be yourself, go for what you want, and have fun. And, you know, it's okay to, you know, like the work that you put out there. Because the funny thing that Mario always likes to say is, you know, because like sometimes when we have discussions about imposter syndrome, Mario's favorite thing to say is, well, I make music that I like to listen to, so that's why I listen to my own music. So because we do that a lot. We listen to our own music, and we enjoy listening to our own music, and because the fun is in the process of, like, we made something we like, and we love, and the process of doing something that you like and that you love comes from really just thinking about what you want to contribute. And it's like, you look inside yourself and you express those things within you, and in doing that, you'll create something that's really cool. Because if you take an action based on inspiration, you'll always get a desired result. If you do something that's based on, like, fear, and like something that's like not really you, or based on imposter syndrome, or based on like, well, I'm going to do this because everyone else will like it, then you're probably not going to get the result that you wanted. But I mean, everyone's different, right? We just kind of tend to work that way, and it works well for us. So, you know, we just kind of go with the flow and do our best. And regardless of how it turns out, we know that in the back of our minds that we're going to put it out there if we know it's our best effort.
Yeah, dude. That's awesome, man. So yeah, the Dark Fantasy Tag Team Champions of the world, Blood of Indigo. Yeah, wicked, man.
Thank you.
I love it, man. I love it. Okay, well, dude, thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. Look forward to chatting again sometime. And
of course, I'm looking forward to it too, man. We'll have so much more to chat about when we talk next, or whenever. Honestly, we can talk about anything, because like it's been so easy to talk to you, because you're very good with conversation, and also allowing me to kind of just brain dump all these 5 years worth of memories, really, like, and really get to share these really fun experiences with you. And I appreciate you being such an incredible listener and asking such great questions. So it's been a pleasure, William. Thank you.
Oh, cheers, man. Thank you. That's all for this episode of Creating a Universe. Thank you so much to Alex for joining me. I really enjoyed this chat. Make sure to go and follow Blood of Indigo. You can visit their website at bloodofindigo.com and follow them on social media at bloodofindigo_. Their debut album, Dawn of the Shaded World, is out now on all major streaming platforms, and you can get a copy for yourself from bloodofindigoshop.com. It's a fantastic record, and I urge you to check it out. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.